Top of the agenda here is an alternative platform for international payments. It's an attempt to sanction-proof Russia's economy. And according to Vladimir Putin, it'll help fix the world's problems.
There is a BRICS summit taking place. If you're not a financial or economic expert like me, I'm saying I'm not one, then you might think, oh, what is it? And it's that set of nations that are forming in order to create a new and alternative global currency, usurping the power of the dollar and disrupting American hegemony, meaning that trading would take place in a different currency, meaning that the default and de facto power that the United States has long yielded would be challenged and perhaps would even collapse. And this at a time where there are military conflicts and a bloody weird vortex election is hardly something that they can withstand. Many people believe that this election will be close run and disruptive, that it could be preceded and certainly followed by massive social unrest and disorder. Perhaps that's why we are seeing new laws passed allowing deadly force to be deployed, as RFK pointed out, because they are anticipating a controversial result and subsequent disruptions. Let me know in the comments in the chat if you agree with that. Now, maybe the reason we should be paying attention during this election is because there are geopolitical connotations. In fact, the framing of the right or MAGA or Maha or Trump or whatever you want to call it has always been, what are we going to do about the economy? What are we going to do to put America first? What are we going to do to support American infrastructure? And shouldn't we be concerned about these escalating conflicts across the world? Whereas the Democrat Party somehow continued to try to frame this entire election cycle around Donald Trump and his personal attributes and whether or not he mentioned Hitler in a meeting. Now, it would seem to me, as a person that's sort of outside of this, both as an English person and as a former entertainer and as someone who don't really know that much about politics and can't even vote in your country anyway, although, hey, maybe I could give it a try. Turns out those things aren't being too tightly regulated. That what we should be focusing on are the global connotations of these issues rather than the kind of cultural inflections of various candidates, i.e. it's not a sports team. You know, when I see like celebrities like Ben Stiller, who don't love Zoolander, who don't love Meet the Parents. I mean, that guy is brilliant and he's funny and I met him a few times and he's a lovely person. But when I see him advocating for Kamala Harris, I'm thinking, I'm a father of daughters as well. I've got daughters, and my priority is, yeah, sure, I don't like people using sexist and crazy language, and I wouldn't want that around my children, but I also don't want my children to die in a nuclear conflict or to grow up in one of the sets of countries that are so closely allied with your country, America, that if your economy collapses, our economy will collapse. I suppose what it makes me feel optimistically is enough people will start to believe that radical change, real radical change, is what's required. And radical change has to start in the consciousness of the individual, doesn't it? If that is the sort of crucible of our interface with eternity, i.e. your personal interface with eternity is within you as mine is within me. And if there are some principles that we can lean into, some kind of understanding that we could rely on, then maybe we will reform movements that oppose what appears to me to be sort of tantamount to evil. Globalism, global power, one world state, one military, ability to censor globally, ability to surveil globally. Seems like a pretty significant problem. And one of the emergent threats to that, or at least the counter-narrative, because who knows, maybe we'll be living in the Russian version of global tyranny under the BRIC, if that's what, I don't know what they're going to call the units of that currency. Maybe that's what's going to happen. Certainly, it appears that they're preparing for it. Once more, here's some commentary, or at least an online post from Glenn Greenwald, who we share this platform with. So he says, while many people believe in the West that Russia and Putin are isolated because the media tells them that, yeah, that's what I saw on the media. 24 world leaders are in Russia now for a 3-day BRICS conference. BRICS itself includes the 2 most populous countries and 4 of the top 10 most populous. That would seem to be a significant a significant threat worth contemplating and considering. Because these ain't Johnny-come-lately nations. We're talking like Brazil, India, China. These are serious, developing, populated countries with great and unbelievable traditions and theologies that are like, hey, maybe Russia's the way to go. This ain't a foregone conclusion. And I reckon we should have learned that there's no such thing as a military foregone conclusion when it comes to proxy wars from Vietnam, which is when we learned, oh, actually, this isn't the Viet Cong versus whoever the other lot were. This is Russia v. America. And how did that wind up? Why don't you talk to your grandparents about that? It turns out it didn't go that well for any of us. And I say that as a person who loves your country and respects the military, and in particular people that are willing to sacrifice themselves for a higher idea. But here, the higher idea is not America. The higher idea is globalism. They're telling you that it's America. It's globalism. We know that now. Okay, let's have a look at let's learn a bit more about this BRICS summit. So while we're being told that Putin is isolated and he's a nut job, from around the world, global leaders are coming to set up a rival economy.
There were sweet treats on arrival for world leaders in Kazan.
Childish, sweet treats, isn't it? Have a Haribo and let's collapse American hegemony.
Recognition, perhaps, that some needed their visits here to be sugar-coated.
See, because they didn't want to be there. They're only there for the sweeties. That's why they've come. I mean, it's like a paedophile, really. A paedophile. A paedophile dipping their genitalia in sherbet and saying to the leaders of Brazil and China and India, and they're only there for a snack. You know, they'll do anything, won't they, those foreigners? They're peckish.
Vladimir Putin doesn't seem to mind, though. He has what he wants.
He doesn't care that they're only there for that delicious Russian cuisine. The childishness, the level of inanity inhered in this reporting. You're used to being spoken to now by people like Tucker Carlson or Joe Rogan or Lex Friedman, or maybe you watch the Young Turks. It don't matter. Maybe you watch the people that actually sort of hate people like me, that are like the left-wing version of this. You're not used to anymore being spoken to like, look at that. Those foreigners have gone to Russia to have a snack. They're certainly not having an important meeting about global finance. It's like we've learned nothing from British colonialism, where we sort of, the Indian is a peculiar fella. Give them a table tennis bat to play with. They'll be amused for an hour. Hey, listen, if you own your home, you might want to be aware of this new scam that the FBI are talking about, where your title deeds can somehow be corrupted and owned by criminals. The FBI, who generally, I'd be dubious about trusting, are warning us of this. They can use your house deeds to create, well, an extraordinary opportunity for scamming. They don't want your house, they're after your equity. Once they take out loans using your home as collateral, they disappear, leaving you with debt and a financial mess. Have you even heard of this? It's terrifying. Protect yourself with triple lock protection from Home Title Lock. Start by checking your title to make sure you're not already a victim of this crazy scheme. And you can get a 30-day free trial and a free title history report when you use the promo code BRAND at HomeTitleLock.com or by clicking the link below. So I'm obviously going to do it because I don't want my title deeds being used to leverage debt using my name. Don't wait till it's too late. Head to HomeTitleLock.com. Use the promo code BRAND and get 30 days of protection and a free title report now by using that code. Click the link in the description.
The company of more than 20 heads of state who have come to Russia for the BRICS summit of emerging economies. And the message from the Kremlin is loud and clear.
They've got a logo and everything. It looks like the Olympics. Oh man, we're in trouble. That's a proper summit with proper world leaders. They're getting their shit together.
The West's efforts to isolate Russia haven't worked. Its strongman leader is only getting stronger.
The BRICS, which stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, is presented as a counter to the Western-led world. In recent years, it's expanded to Egypt, Iran, Ethiopia, and the UAE. 20 world leaders in total are descending on the Russian city of Kazan for the summit. It's seen by the Kremlin as sending the message that attempts by the West to isolate President Vladimir Putin over his invasion of Ukraine have failed. Moscow is touting this as the largest foreign policy event the country has ever hosted. The Russian president hopes to use the summit to convince members to adopt an alternative to the dollar for global payments. BRICS nations account for 45% of the global population and about 28% of the world economy, and there is interest in other countries joining the group. Moscow claims about 30 want to join or seek closer ties.
It shows something about the weakness of the sanctions regime. There was a lot of exaggerated sense as to how essentially the West could put a stranglehold on Russia. And many countries are frankly not willing to play those games. And it highlights the degree to which in this incredibly complex multi-connected modern world, it's very hard to actually isolate any country.
Top of the agenda here is an alternative platform for international payments. It's an attempt to sanction-proof Russia's economy. And according to Vladimir Putin, it'll help fix the world's problems.
This is so serious that this is happening while the West, inverted commas, are trying to make Putin a pariah. Think of the condemnation that is offloaded and unloaded at Donald Trump. He's an idiot. He's like a child. You can't have him in charge of a country. Look at what's happening right now. Vladimir Putin has got together a symposium, a consortium of world leaders that are discussing a future that excludes America, that global trade will take place in a different currency. It's also an indicator of something that we've been talking about a lot on this channel. Because of the ability to communicate, new network nodes and alliances can form. You no longer require a kind of feudal and centralized systems that the nation was augured under. At the point where the nation was established, it was helpful to centralize everything. Even in the 20th century, it made sense to have like the British Broadcasting Corporation. You need news, do you, son? Although they're English. The British Broadcasting Corporation. Do you need information? Well, we'll tell it to you. You don't need that now. You can give information to each other. You can even, like a small independent media contributor like me, you can just cut me out, no problem. Hundreds will crop up in my place. You can use the same thing. You can make the same analogy with new emergent currencies. You can't centralize power in the way that you once could unless it is legitimized and undergirded by extraordinary authority. So what they're trying to create are continual crises to justify taking further authority. We have to take authority because, look, Russia are evil. We have to take authority because of, I don't know, COVID. We have to take more authority because of these various sanctions. That what we will experience, and this is not prophecy, this is history, because recent history, is further and further legitimization of authority. So when Bobby Kennedy says stuff like they've just passed a bill that allows them to use lethal force during protests in the United States, that shows you what they're preparing for. Here's a prediction from me right now. The election will be close run. There will be talk of election fraud. There will be public disturbances. There will be martial law. Which party and which president do you imagine that is more likely to take place under? Because what we're experiencing now are tectonic shifts, not just national shifts, epochal shifts. We're coming to the end of a period of time. The nation itself could be under threat. It is under threat. That's what globalism is. That's why around the world you're seeing nation-first politics in India, France, United Kingdom, America. Even in Canada, you will start to see movements that are like, we want to put Canada first, we want to put France first, we want to put Italy first. It will happen everywhere because it's in opposition to globalism. Now, what globalism is about accruing and coalescing magnificent authority. The authority that previously would only have been given to, because how do you oppose it? God. And once you have God-like authority, you'll start imposing God-like rules. And if you have a population that don't believe in God, it'll be all the easier because people won't have any fuel to oppose this level of corruption, hypocrisy, and authoritarianism. But you can see that there's not just the problem of like Donald Trump, populist, maverick, demagoguery, person who understands media better than they do and is able to reach a population that they're trying to control by saying, look, just watch over here, Obama's doing some rapping. Like they're trying to distract you from the possibility that if you can set up parallel economies, parallel systems of government, parallel systems of trade, and that's happening right now on a global level. Like, and not from like little chancers from made up countries. Putin and Xi, like world leaders, that if they were to form a military alliance, we would be in a global war right now. And that is what could happen unless the kind of diplomacy that should have been deployed in the first place between Ukraine and Russia, and would have been if there weren't money to be made out of those countries having a war, both in terms of munitions, reparations, the kind of BlackRock Vanguard stuff that will go down when they have to eventually rebuild Ukraine, assuming that it's not Russian territory at that point. These are the kind of conversations that we have to be having, not bloody, oh no, Trump mentioned Hitler in a slightly offhand way.
We have assumed responsibility for the future of the world, not in word, but in deed. We are exerting a truly positive influence on global stability and security.
Ukraine and the West would argue very differently, but there's no sign of the West here this week. As the host of this summit, Vladimir Putin is trying to turn the BRICS group into a powerful rival to the West, both politically and economically. He sees that as the foundation of what he calls a new world order.
No, New World Order. Where have we heard that before? The New World Order is exactly what is being opposed, and that is why, I suppose, people are having trouble shifting from, oh, hold on, the Democrats, isn't that like Martin Luther King and stuff, and aren't they the goodies? People are struggling to recognise that civil rights now does not formulate around the same ideas that it did 50 years ago. It formulates around broader issues like free speech, personal bodily autonomy, and opposition to levels of authority that are unprecedented, i.e., watch out. Because I reckon after this election, there could be a time of everyone's got to go martial law, curfews, stay in your home, street disturbances. We've already seen in my country, the UK, people are getting jailed for putting stuff on Facebook. So this is not mad hysteria. This is observations. This is just an observation. I'm not making a moral claim for any or either party, actually. I'm making claims for virtues and principles that transcend politics and have to be derived from a faith in a higher authority, specifically God, and in my case, Jesus. And if you don't have your own version of that or a version of that, don't worry, because the state will provide you with one. If you don't have a God, don't worry, because the state's got one for you. The state is, in fact, doing that for you. And what you will believe in is pleasure and hedonism and distraction. And I know, because I've lived like that myself. But that's just what I think. Why don't you let me know what you think in the comments and the chat?
Hey, thanks for watching. If you want to see more uncensored content where free speech can flourish, join our live stream. Click the link right here to watch the next video if you want to, or become a member of a growing movement. Download the Rumble app and you'll be informed every time we make a new piece of content. Stay free.